Yo, what's up, crew? Man, I am so excited for today's career chat. I have someone very special on this chat. She is so special to me because not only is she a touring merchandise manager these days, but she was also one of my past students of an early program before the pandemic. And I want to welcome to the show or the chat Rachel Ingber. Rachel, say what's up.
Hey guys, how are we?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let me change the view here. Bam. What's up, Rachel?
What's up?
Man, I just wanted to introduce you like that because I can't tell you how inspiring you are to me. As a coach, it is just like the most fulfilling thing to see someone actually take action and then on their own apply the principles that you've learned. Like we had a program before the pandemic that Rachel was in called the Backstage Crew Career Course. Now, that course was kind of a 30-day, 5 days a week. Remember that? It was a
Definitely
lot.
do.
And it wasn't cheap, it was a good chunk of investment that she stepped into. She didn't know me from, other than just what she's seen me online, and she decided to invest in this program because what I was offering was a tangible pathway to the career that she had already started. Like, I didn't help Rachel get started in this career. She was already started in this in her local area. And she found me to go, hey, can you help me do this faster than I can myself? Essentially, would you say?
100%.
So bring us back a little bit. You are from where?
I'm originally from New York, but when I met you, I was living in Florida. I was out in Miami.
Ah, okay. What West Palm Beach, a little north of Miami, right?
Yep. South Florida overall.
Right on.
In doing this, we're kind of a little bit of everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and I would say West Palm Beach was like my network, my market.
Right on. And so what were you doing down there when you first found me?
When I first met you, I was already working for a recording studio. I want to say I was there for maybe 2 years when I met you.
Okay.
Working for Live Nation as well. And I was working for a local casino handling merchandise at their events.
Okay. And what were you doing for Live Nation?
I was also doing merchant security.
Merch and security. Okay. Awesome. And then the recording studio, what was that
I
experience?
was running the studio, so I was a general manager of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I remember you were always so tenacious during that time. So when you found me, like, well, what was your initial desire? Were you wanting to get on tour? Is that why you were doing all that? Or where were you at in your head with getting all that experience at the time?
Touring was definitely the goal. I definitely felt that I wasn't really getting anywhere in my local area,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because I didn't know anyone in my area that toured.
Right.
Everyone wanted to do it instead.
Yeah.
And I definitely believe you are the company that you keep in that sense. So if nobody around you is doing necessarily what you want to do, makes it a little bit more difficult because you can't bounce ideas the same way you would with someone who's actually doing it.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. Or even just in the pursuit of it.
Oh,
That's
for
right.
sure.
Yeah, different mindset too. So then at that point, what was you were getting all this experience? What made you seek out another step, a next level?
I knew I always wanted more, just didn't necessarily know how.
Mm-hmm.
I had spoken to a lot of mutual friends who didn't know you personally, but knew your online presence. And they're
Gotcha.
very much so like, it's not something for me, but like maybe if that's something you want to do, it could work for you. I
Right.
looked more to the BCC at the time that you had. I knew a lot of people, a lot of good reviews. And I said, you know what? Like, it's an investment in myself.
Yeah.
Let's try it. The worst thing that's going to happen is it doesn't work. And I'm still where I'm at right now.
Well, let me ask you about that investment. So, what made you actually put your credit card down and invest? Because you were like, well, if it doesn't work, like what wouldn't work? You wouldn't do the work, or maybe I wasn't the right coach for you, or you didn't even know what coaching was, or any of this stuff, this education program. What was your biggest concerns about investing in the Backstage Crew career course at the time?
I mean, life overall is risks, but it's always risk versus reward. I think my biggest concern with originally jumping into it was time, right?
Mm,
Because you knew I was doing a little bit of everything. I was running a studio. which should have
Wow.
been 40 hours a week. That was more like 80 hours a week. And we did it 5 days a week.
Yeah, we did.
Every night, I remember I would be in my car, like already hopping on these calls to start,
Yeah.
racing to my room to like switch from my phone to my computer. And that was definitely like one of the biggest hurdles, and like saying, ooh, I want to invest in this. I want it to work, but also my schedule is so tight already. How can I make it work?
Yeah. That's a really big thing for a lot of people is trying to fit out this new career in the transition to get into it at the next level in their current circumstances. But that was something with you that I knew that you were going to absolutely do something special with this experience and with your tenacity because you never missed a session. I mean, there were times where you had to go away in the meeting and show back up in your room or wherever. You were like uber committed throughout this whole program. And mind you, I mean, it was a 5 day a week program. And sometimes you guys know I ramble a little bit. And these hour-long classes sometimes were an hour and a half and things like that. But so you showed up and you started to really like figure out how to put this work into your current circumstances. What did that look like? How did you actually make time for you and this future in that transition?
Honestly, like still looking back at it, like some of it's definitely a blur. I think because so much was happening.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like changing the schedule every Monday and Tuesday to like just be like, oh, the calls start, and I'll be walking out the door. It's a 10-minute drive home. 10 minutes will be like audio. And then the rest of the course would be video, and note taking. It was definitely like, it wasn't just about listening to what you said. It was definitely taking notes and then applying it to real life.
Yeah.
Not saying, oh, every no you receive, like every email you sent out, not everyone's going to say yes. Not everyone's going to say like, yeah, sure, I come to a show, come do this, come do that. And I was like, oh, well, don't get discouraged by all the no's you receive because one of those no's will lead to a yes.
Yeah, for sure. And you were so studious in this because I remember like you would at the end of every module we had a Q&A session and Rachel would be like flipping back her notes and going, okay, so you said this, I'm just like, she is soaking it in, like
I
not
still have
everybody
that
okay.
book too. Like up until now, I still have it. I take it out with me when I tour.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll like flip back and I'm like, ooh, like we spoke about this. Where is it?
Yeah. Yeah, really. Well, we had a good sized class of people. I don't know. There was probably, I don't know, 9 or 10 or something of us in that class,
Sounds about
something.
right.
But either way, out of those few in that class, I think there really was only about maybe 3 of you guys that really stepped forward into this at a higher level and actually still do this. Because mind you guys, for those watching, this is the end of 2019. And so Rachel and these folks, they had no idea what was coming. None of us did. None of us had any clue that the pandemic was about to hit us hard in March and shut it all down. But that didn't stop you, right?
No, I think it actually made it harder in its own way though.
I bet.
Because everything we had just learned that we wanted to apply in your own way, you couldn't right then and there.
Right.
It was, ooh, I have to remember different parts of what you taught and do as much of that as I could because it wasn't now, oh, go down to your local venue. Well, your local venue's closed. It wasn't go down to a show because there were none.
Mm-hmm.
So it very much so was, okay, you're growing your social resume. You're finding people online that you want to connect with. It was, okay, well, it's the pandemic. I can still get coffee with people. Like that doesn't change it. I have to wear a mask now and like we'll have to sit rather far from each other. Or like it was a Zoom call similar to this where I made coffee in my kitchen, you made coffee in yours, and we spoke just like this.
Yeah.
So it was just it was adapting.
Yeah.
Truly.
It would have stopped most people. And to be honest with you, for myself, I scrambled to go into not survival mode, but thriving mode for my family. So I ended up having to make a hard shift. I shut out the BCC group. I went hardcore to try to focus on businesses that I could do to generate income for my family, which left you guys a little bit out, admittedly, because I was having to refocus. Now, you guys, meaning you and Juan and some of these other folks, one other folk really, that was still in it from a head game. So you made it work with you through the pandemic. So I was also teaching the personal development skills required to do the work. So it wasn't just, the tactical, like you talked about with showing up at the venues and reaching out and stuff, which you couldn't do. There was still interior work that I had you guys do, listen to some of that, those motivational things and things like that. Was some of that part of your work as well?
Oh, for sure. We definitely dove deep into audiobooks, motivational speaking in your mornings, definitely jotting down like what you wanted to see happen, in the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah.
Some of that all wasn't necessarily realistic at the time because we didn't know when the pandemic was going to end.
Right.
But it didn't change what the overall goal was. Because the reality was it was going to end. I mean,
Yeah.
we're still somewhat in it now, but life is going on again. Our business is booming. We're all working again. So it was about being better equipped for when the doors did reopen
Oh yeah, and
and
boy,
positioning yourself.
did you. This is an exciting transitional part for you, Rachel, because you had to do some pretty serious convincing to make this next leap. I'm going to let you tell them about this, but you had to convince not just yourself that this was the right move to go and position yourself, but you had to convince someone else, didn't you?
I did.
Tell us about that.
I had a really good job. I ran a studio for 3.5 years at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much so was, you know what? This has proven to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
It was working. It was working in my local area, but I wanted to do more than that in my local area. The goal was always to tour.
Yeah.
I could always sell merch, up the street, but the goal was more. And we definitely spoke numerous times about repositioning yourself and like maybe going to a different area. And I always said, I enjoyed Nashville. Nashville's a great place to be. There are plenty of merch companies based out here. A lot of tours, as you mentioned, leave from here.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I have a great job. I have benefits. I have this, I have that, but I don't have at the end of the day what I want most.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to convince my mom, who it was probably at that time, like in her mid-50s, that I wanted to leave our life in South Florida to come somewhere completely new, which sounds easy for someone my age, but for someone who's been somewhere 20 years and is established and likes where they're at, wasn't as easy of a push.
Man, what a powerful thing to be so passionate about what you do and so certain. Like there's a lot of uncertainty here, obviously, with making a whole move to Nashville, but like you must have had some pretty surefire confidence in yourself to be able to sell this idea of, hey, mom, no. Like when we get there, it is just the next big step to really be ready to pounce. What did those conversations look like? I mean, was she immediately sold or what?
Well, originally it was the conversation of separating ways.
Oh,
Because Juan and I were going to leave together.
hi, one of the other students, yeah.
So Juan and I were going to leave together. We were going to get a place here. Juan ended up making the transition before I did. Him and his girlfriend moved up, and I had the opportunity to leave with them. I said, "Hey, mom, this is what I want to do," and it was, "No, I get that you want to do that, but like I don't want to be alone here." So it was then, okay, well, I can respect that. We're the only family we have. But now it's a 6-month plan. Like by summer, I'm going to be gone. You can either come with me or you can stay.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like a harsh truth.
Yeah.
And it was really like a push in my own way for her of like, well, do you want to come or do you want to go? Because regardless, I have to go. And she ended up doing things a bit behind my back at the time. She got a job in Nashville. I had no idea she was even looking.
Oh.
And I ended up leaving in April, so spring. And it was, hey, I got a job offer. If this is what you want, we can leave like right now. But like, how do you feel about like telling your boss you're leaving right now? And I was like, well, I still want to do this the right way at the end of the day. let's have you go. Like, I'm 100% in, but let's have you go to Tennessee. You start this. I want to still give a 2-week notice. I want to do this. I want to go about this the right way. And no, it's not going to be easy. I have to train someone new to do everything I was doing. And I slowly made my way here 2 weeks later.
Well, I remember when all of this went down, because there were some calls with me and some letting me in on this journey. And I got to tell you, it gets me a little emotional. I love your mother so much. I haven't even met her yet. Well, I guess one time in one of those car rides where you but I'm just so inspired by this story, because you can't sell anyone on anything if you're not sold on it yourself. And your mom, she knew it. She knew that without her, you were going. And so behind your back, she helped empower you by positioning her own self for her daughter. That's some powerful support that most people, a lot of people just don't have. I know people right now that I'm coaching that are like, hey man, I want to make these big leaps, but my family's not on board. Like how can you sell somebody? How can you sell somebody that's doubtful, that's so anchored into their current local situation? How's that possible?
It was not easy by any means. My mom definitely is the person who didn't think what we do is a job. We're not doctors, we're not lawyers. We provide entertainment, we contribute to live events. And she saw that as like a hobby.
Yeah.
That's something you do on Saturday after you work as an admin Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the biggest part, was explaining how many roles existed and how it wasn't too different from running the studio, because that was playing a part in this industry, but not necessarily what I wanted to be doing overall. Yeah. Because I hit a ceiling at that point. Mm-hmm. I'm already the general manager. We're not opening more locations. The owner had zero desire to do that. So where I was at was where I was at. It wasn't going to get any better. Right. It wasn't going to change. And if I didn't feel fulfilled there, I wasn't going to feel fulfilled a year later, because a year later might look like this with a different, paint color. But at the end of the day, it's still the same building. It's the same job. Yeah. And then, mind you, at that time, when I first started getting coached by you, I didn't drive either.
I remember.
I didn't drive.
That's amazing.
So on top of doing that, doing our thing, I then was doing driving classes in the morning before work. Got my license, I think, it was like 3 weeks before I moved to Nashville. And then I ended up saying, well, in any capacity of this job, like, the highway is a real thing. I have my license in hand, but I could take the easy way and fly from Florida to Tennessee. But instead, I opted to drive 18 hours in a rental car with my dog.
That's so cool. So wow. So you make it to Nashville. You guys move to south of Nashville and position yourself. Your mom's working her new gig. What did you do to make some income?
Originally, I was working at a hotel as a night auditor. Oh. I had never worked at a hotel, but I knew it was something that I could leverage in this industry, because, hey, in touring, we still sleep somewhere. Not every day is a bunk day. And I was like, well, maybe I could use my relationship with this to talk to more people in town. Right. I was there for couldn't have been more than 3 weeks. 3 weeks sounds like a lot. And I got a phone call from the owner of the studio in Florida, who said, hey, Rach, we have the studio in Murfreesboro, which is where I live, like 35 miles from Nashville. And he goes, it's not a position you're looking for, but it would still give you a role in the studio to be connected to music. And I said, well, it's near my house, something I'm familiar with. I'll meet musicians in town. All right, why not? And in doing that, I learned that people who worked there didn't like the positions they were in. And in going in for one position, I ended up being the studio manager yet again, which was initially what I asked for before moving, and was told the position wasn't available. to then actually get that gig at the end of the day. And I ran that studio for the first 6 months of being here.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. So just to kind of unpack a little bit of that, guys, she was willing to do something job wise to bring in some income, but also she was using it to learn lessons to leverage because she knew that she could possibly learn something with the relationship of the hotel industry that would directly apply to her future. That's some hyper self-awareness. You know, that's you looking into your future when making moves now. That's pretty big. I remember when you got on as that studio manager, we actually were kind of rekindling some of our calls again with the BCC group at that time, me, you, and Juan, and I think that might have been about it. Maybe Michael or
I think
whatever.
Michael was still there too.
Michael jumped in, and yeah, we were all kind of discussing this, and I remember you talking about like, well, if I do this, you know, I'm feeling like I might get stuck a little bit because of your commitment. But you didn't get stuck at all. Actually, you were impressively leveraging the crap out of that situation. I
I
mean,
definitely
what did
did.
that show? What was it? Was Saving Abel?
Yep,
Or
Saving April. We did an intimate night in the alley.
that
The
was a good idea.
studio, yeah, the studio was open for like 2 years. Unfortunately, they opened like right before the pandemic. So they were directly affected because business didn't exist yet, really. And then when I took it over, numbers were bad. You know, crew was unhappy, of course. Nothing's really going on. And Saving Able had reached out to the studio because they wanted rehearsal time. And they offered to barter, and they were saying, oh, you know, we can do some like promo videos. And I was like, all right, like videos are cool, but like we don't need videos.
Yeah.
We need to do something that's like almost like a new grand opening.
Yeah.
And like, what could I do? And it was originally Jared Weeks was the original singer of Saving Abel. He had taken a hiatus of like 7 years. He was doing like a solo thing. And I said, well, like, how about I get to kind of like unveil that to Murfreesboro? Nothing really happens around town. Let's do that here. So we ended up doing a 5-song acoustic set. We sold like 180 tickets, sit down show. Everyone got a meet and greet. And it was the most money the studio pretty much like actually made up until it closed like last month.
Right.
I got to put everything I knew, like all of my little skills, like from merchandising to VIP to running a studio, threw it all together and rolled out a completely different type of event
And it's
that was a
successful.
VIP experience. It's one of, I think anyone who loves music, like, you know, you want your artist to get bigger, but then you always find yourself missing those smaller moments.
Mm.
And like, they are still one of those bands. So many people came from so many different areas for this show just because of like the experience and the opportunity. She kind of like inspired me a bit more to push past the studio in my own way.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, you know, having conversations with you about this. And, you know, one thing too that was really impressive is yes, Rachel has all these different skills. And yes, even during this time, me as her coach, I was reminding her of that future merch manager goal. Like, you're still working towards being a merch manager, right? Like, I kept reminding you because there were conversations of you digging in deeper to some of these passions, because there's a lot of passions. It's not just one passion that we have. There's a multitude of passions, you know? And if you're not careful in controlling some of these passions and without thinking about where your still future desires lie, it's easy to let these passions run you. And there was a time where you were just like, man, I could dig in doing more of the studio stuff. And Rachel would literally show up to the calls. She's got her phone like this. She's wrapping mic cables, setting up mics. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's just like, oh, I'm just preparing for the next band to come in. I'm just like, Rachel, you are a beast. But
You
remember,
had to.
I know you did. I'm like, remember, you're still wanting to be a touring merch person. And so, what was this transition to the next phase from the studio?
It was actually really hard because I definitely found myself getting comfortable again, which is something we've talked about in great lengths. You know, it's easy to get comfortable when you have a good situation going. I was like, well, now I'm in Nashville. I've got like a $65,000 job, like with benefits. I have job security, right? I have job security. Now I'm getting to throw like cool events, right? Like I can roll out this whole series. And I was like, oh, like this can work. Like I can sell merch in the lobby. And then I started seeing like almost a different goal. And I was allowing that to kind of cloud my judgment of the real reason I moved here. And it was very much so like, okay, I need to catch myself before I fall too far behind, which wasn't really easy, especially because at the time, my mom was kind of happy with that transition. We very much so were like, this is great. You're making great money. You're doing what you love still. You're in a new place. This should be enough.
Yeah.
And it's easy to hear, especially like after the pandemic, you're doing what somebody would kill to be doing. And I was like, but it still isn't why I moved here. I didn't pick up my entire life to pretty much do the same thing, except now have a venue attached. That still at the end of the day can't hold more than 300 people standing. So I spoke with the owner again. We had some creative differences as far as rollouts go. We didn't feel like we were making as much as we could, mostly because of greed, unfortunately, which happens to the best of us. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to use my 2 weeks of vacation time. I'm going to work this much longer. And I'm just going to fully transition into freelancing and kind of figure it out from there. And the first thing I started doing that year was I jumped into the festival scene. I was doing festival merch. So it was high volume vending. It was something I was familiar with, but not at those lengths.
How'd you get that opportunity?
I had been reaching out to different companies, as you had mentioned, when we were doing our original crew coaching.
Yeah.
And I want to say like a friend of a friend had worked with them. They were based in New Jersey, which is nowhere near me. It definitely came with its own challenges. You had to pay the cost of like getting to and from. And I was like, okay, well, like I can't just say, oh, I'm going to throw money at this and I'm going to go. How much am I going to make? Like money was definitely a factor to an extent because it has to make sense still.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'll do it once, twice, 3 times. And if it proves that it's not effective, I'll have to figure out something different.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was going down to merchandise companies here, trying to do e-commerce or fulfillment.
Right. And so before you continue on, I think I just wanted to clarify, like when you're talking about you're having to pay your own way, like let's just say that there's a festival in, I don't know, Orlando, because that was one of them.
Yep.
Which was actually one of the early ones. I think you're like, wait a minute, now I'm going right back to where I just
exactly what happened.
And so she literally had to pay for her flight and or car and gas and everything, pay for your hotel, right?
Nope. So that was the only upside with that company.
Okay.
They didn't cover our travel as far as flights went, but they did handle our hotel accommodations. It came out of our pay. It was like $40 a night based off of double occupancy. And they provided transportation to and from the hotel to site.
Okay.
But
So
not
Gotcha. Sorry to cut you off. That makes sense. And so I just wanted to clarify that because that's an investment. It's not a cost. It's an investment to your future unless it's a cost to you up here, right?
Yeah, but at the time it was a cost because I didn't have a permanent job.
Right.
It's a matter of, well, how much of a nest egg do I have?
Right.
And how much can I extend myself without crucifying myself at the same time because I was still trying to get my feet wet in town.
I mean, and that's what I mean by that. It's like it is an investment or it's a cost from a perspective standpoint. Certainly you weighed out the benefits and pros because you definitely couldn't be under. It needed to be a positive return, but like even if you broke even, it would have been a positive return of experience and relationship building and all those things, right?
Exactly. And when in doing that, the first couple times I did it, it was more than just a high volume vend. I knew I would be around, let's say 40 other people who also sell merch. What do those 40 other people do? And where are they all based out of? There were some people that I met on those vends that actually lived in town that I didn't find online because like we didn't use social media, but have turned to be like great relationships, great friends, and like now great allies and people that I work with quite often.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's mega lessons right there. There's so much power in proximity, and also sharing your intentions casually without asking. I'm sure there was lots of conversations that you had around the table going, yeah, I'm working towards getting on tour one day.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
And then like even in doing so, like I eventually found myself on tour and
Okay.
also getting other opportunities to tour with other artists, but you can only be at one place at one time.
That's right. Well, before you jump too far, I want to say so you're doing the festival scene. Now, mind you, you're about to leave out on your third tour, like third official bus tour, right?
Yep. Three.
Okay.
Yep.
And so she just landed another one and literally leaves out, I think, this week, right?
No, we leave at the end of March, but we rolled out the tour like 3 days ago. So we just announced it. Tickets just went on sale Friday.
Okay, okay, I understand now. But here's the thing that I want the crew coach members to understand that, like, she's doing the festival thing. She's traveling all over. I'm watching her, by the way. She fills me in on some stuff, and then I remember I get a call from her and said, "Hey, Kenny, you remember that one-on-one coaching session that we're supposed to get included with the BCC program?" She goes, "I'm ready for it." I'm like, let's do it. So then she tells me that she has an opportunity to do merch on tour in a capacity that she was just uncertain of. Tell us about that a little bit.
I think even before that tour, I had the other tour offer during the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
That was for Jurassic Quest. I want to say it was like through Feld Entertainment.
That's right. Okay.
I don't even think it was for merchandising. I don't even recall what it was actually for at the end of the day.
That's this, yes.
And we heavily discussed like if that was a good move. And every gig is not the gig for you. Like you stress that day in and day out.
Yes, I do.
That was definitely one of those times where I was like, I don't think
Yeah.
this is right. Like, I don't think it makes sense.
I
So I had
remember.
offers that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But when we used that call, that was when I finally had gotten one that I said, I think I want to do this. I've accepted this offer, but what did I just get myself into?
Yeah, so I remember this coaching session because we talked a little bit about like some of the things to expect technically on the job and how to kind of take responsibility and express ownership and things like that relationship wise, but moreover, how this one tour could make sense in the bigger picture of Rachel's touring future, because really what you wanted to do was tour with music artists that you loved.
Correct.
And what was this first tour about?
It was actually more of a sporting event.
Okay.
So I ended up going out with Stars on Ice, which is the U.S. Olympic figure skating team. So kind of like off the beaten path for me. I never watched the Olympics. I've never watched anyone figure skate. I knew absolutely nothing about this. But what I did know was I was still handling merchandise and I was handling autographs, which is kind of more of like the VIP roles I had carried. And they were both merging together and we were doing arenas. We weren't doing anything small. So I'm like, okay, like this is actually like a really big step in its own way because we're talking bigger venues, bigger players, and honestly, like bigger acts in its own way because they represent our country.
How many pieces of merch did you have on that gig?
We had 15 skaters. So each skater had their own individual photo. 3 of them were pairs. So let's say with the group photos, probably 14 photos that all had to be signed. 2 programs, and I probably say 10 to 12 pieces of cotton, give or take.
I mean, that's a big responsibility. And I remember this coaching session going, Rachel, the functions and the actual applications of the work experience that you need on tour is there for you in this gig. Despite the show, it was you're doing the merge, you're getting to take responsibility of that capacity, you're doing arena shows, you're getting to work with a tour and production manager in that relationship, and you're practically, or you're really specifically getting a tour of an arena tour on your resume, because merch is merch is merch is merch, really.
Oh, 1000%.
Amazing. And did that end up just being an amazing experience, or was it terrible?
It was a really cool experience. Uh, it's a different experience still. But a cool one at that. It was also a little weird. It was the first time I was ever doing something where I didn't get to sell.
Hmm.
That entire tour, I issued the merch and I checked it in, I checked it out.
Yeah.
And that wasn't something I was used to. You know, I didn't really get to do
Yeah.
those displays the way I'd like. So it's kind of having to also give creative feedback and say, like, ooh, like I would prefer to see this here. Um, re-verifying those numbers. Shows are busy. We all know that. It's also my job to make sure product is restocked if you need it. But if no one's letting you know, how can you do it?
That's right.
So even in my own day of now taking on additional roles along the tour, I'm still making time to kind of like run by those booths. Ooh, like we're running low on this. Let me go pull some, count it out, count it back in.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, there's so much valuable experience. And then I was just like so excited whenever I would see you post things about the skaters and the Olympians. And I saw the other day that you wished one of the Olympians a happy birthday. How cool is that that Rachel knows Olympians in her life? You know, that's just such a byproduct of this gig that like this career that we don't even realize and we don't vocalize much. It's like we're so hyper focused on the tour, the work, doing the merch, but it's like you built relationships with Olympians.
Most definitely.
How cool is that?
Those Olympians are a little upset with me right now.
Oh, because you're not out there with them or what?
So both of my tour offers conflicted this year.
And they wanted
Uh,
you.
they want to be back. And unfortunately, you know, the overall goal was always to be in music.
That's right.
And not that I didn't love my skating tour, which because I did,
Yeah.
but they only do one tour for the year.
Right.
Whereas a music tour does 4, 5, depending on like where we're going.
Yeah.
So there is more opportunity there. It was also geared more towards what I want to be doing overall.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of make a hard decision there.
Mhm.
We are still trying to navigate that.
Yeah.
Maybe in me sending someone out for the first couple, you know, days of that, and then meeting up with it and then flying back. Um, but as of right now, they're a little sad.
Well, that's a cool position to be in, though, isn't it? You
Oh,
know,
for sure.
when you can tell someone, no, sorry, I can't, and they still want to figure out how they can get you to some degree. I've experienced this in my own life, and it's exactly what I'm pushing in Crew Coach and all of my teachings is like, be such a pleasant, you know, powerful value in all these different areas from personality to your process and to how you operate that people, no matter what, will jump through hoops to have you in their life. I know, like for me, I had Rachel come down and work my very first concert in my production company because I just know how valuable Rachel is. I'm like, everyone needs a Rachel. Everyone needs a Rachel. It's because she is so consistently her, authentically her, and she learns, she serves, she's courageous, she's compassionate, she's all the things that I really try to instill in you guys here in Crew Coach and in my trainings, because it's not just the work and the functionalities of the work, it's all the rest of it. You know, I mean, that's a powerful thing. So let me ask you, the company that has the Olympians or the on ice tour, do they do other tours? Was there ever an option for you to do more with that specific company, or is that the only tour they do?
Well, unfortunately, IMG does not.
IMG does
They
not. Okay.
are the rare company that this is just something else they kind of play a part in. IMG manages some of these Olympic athletes, and
Ah,
that's how the production came about.
very cool.
They
Is there?
manage them during the season,
Hmm,
and then they provide something off season. Um, they do a holiday run, but it's very, very, very minimal.
yeah.
I want to say it's like 6 shows. They
Right.
don't even bring merch out for that tour. It's very much so just like a feel good type of thing. It's almost like a preseason warm up at the same time.
Right.
They go out 3 months later.
That makes it. Is there an opportunity to do the Olympics through this company at one point?
Honestly, um, possibly.
Ooh, Ooh, how cool is that? Like, that's so cool to me. Like, a seed has been planted that potentially could put Rachel in one of the Olympics one day.
Mhm.
I mean, that's such a cool thing.
And whether that be working it or just as a patron, going to support my
True.
friends that are now Olympic athletes.
So cool. So cool. Byproducts of pursuing the career, not just getting gigs. Because if you're just out there to do the job and stuff, you won't have those other extracurricular conversations. It won't matter to you. It'll be all surface level conversations, and you'll just be there to do the job for the paycheck. But you have really expressed to other people who Rachel really is, because that's what this business is about. It's not about a who you know business, it's about a who knows you business. And they can't know you, like you, and trust you if they don't actually get to know you beyond just what you're doing in your job.
Well, I think a good thing to even throw out there as well was I was taking on the role of someone who held it for 20 years.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of those like first kind of moments comparing myself to someone I didn't know and wanting to fill the shoes of someone else and thinking, okay, well, I have to do it their way because it was their gig.
Hmm.
And then I found myself saying, well, that doesn't work for me because that's not my way.
Yeah.
So then I readapted and I kind of repositioned the entire curriculum and what I wanted to do, but I based it around the skater schedule versus my own. And
Hmm.
I think that's where we really differed at the end of the day. And that's why I've been asked partially to come back as well.
Yeah.
Some of these athletes had done this tour 5, 10 times over, but this is the first time they ever said they enjoyed doing this tour. Because in the past, they would sign these things day in and day out. Now, I don't know about you, but I know I personally would not want to sign things every day.
Nope.
You skate 2 shows, you wake up early, you do your free skate, you're doing interviews. At what time do you have time for you? And I was like, you know what? Like, how can I make this make more sense? And then I was like, they're Olympians. So they must be competitive. So I said, you know what? Let's make it into a game. I would drop my product at the beginning of the week instead. And I'd say, sign what you can. This is what we're doing for the entire week. If you sign it all today, I'll see you next week. And now
Yes.
you can go to Disney the morning we're in Anaheim. Instead of saying, oh, I have 400 photos of myself to sign plus 300 programs, I have a long day.
Hmm.
And then it became a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that was one of the things I was actually praised for most, was kind of like how creative I was with that process.
Because yes, you needed to get these things done to do your job and all that stuff, but understanding that it's all about serving. I mean, that's what relationships are all about. That's really what bringing value to the workplace is all about. It's not about you, which the last merch person, sure, they had it for 20 years, but it was about them doing their job, and as opposed to, yeah, you're going to get your job done, but like, how can I do this in such a way that serves the bigger picture?
Exactly.
That's so cool, man.
It gave them a lot more time to do things they also wanted to do. Cause like, just as we get excited traveling the country, these are young kids. They were younger than I was getting to do this. So
Yeah, that's
it's
very
cool.
cool. So lots of amazing advancement and growth and lessons and just so much that you gained from that tour. What happened next? How did you make the transition to your next thing? Was it seamless to the next tour? What happened?
So that tour ended in June, and I didn't go back out on tour until August.
Okay.
That sounds right. Like the end of August.
And during this middle part, I mean, what'd you do? Were you
I
worried that you weren't going to get on another tour?
Not necessarily. I knew it would happen eventually. It might not happen right away.
Hmm.
That comes in just building your resume in general. More people who know you, the better off you are. Um, I went back to my festival network, did more and more festivals. In doing that, I met new people. One of which called me and said, hey, I'm supposed to do this. I've been offered a run. I can't go. Can you replace me? And I said, that's in 4 days. Yeah, sure. No problem. Mind you, during this time, I'm also working as a runner locally at
Okay.
one of my venues.
Because you got back with Live Nation or what?
No, I think I was just reaching out to venues at the time it was when I first moved here.
Yeah.
And I had seen numerous shows at Marathon over the time of me traveling in and out of Tennessee before I lived here.
Yeah.
And it was a venue that I really liked. It was small, but like not too small.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up just kind of hitting it off via email. Came down one day to meet someone, and originally was trying to just be a local merch seller for them. But since I had recently gotten my license, I became a runner as well, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something I was familiar with, but figured couldn't be too different from catering to those in my studios.
Yeah.
Ended up being pretty much the same thing, except I went to the store physically and bought it all. Ironically, one of the bands that I served as a runner for was on the festival when I took this girl's place. And the company I was working for did their own meet and greets. And it was, oh my gosh, like, what do you know? Like, here we are again.
Yeah.
Had a good relationship. We did that festival. Another festival comes. They're doing a meet and greet yet again with now another company I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout all of this, I hear through the grapevine, we're looking for a merch person for a tour like 10 minutes from now. I reach out, say, hey, like, if you're still looking for someone, I'm very interested. And it was, well, we really liked you, but we've never had a girl on tour.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys are married, they're in relationships. It's not something we've done before,
Yeah.
but we are open to it because we've worked with you already. So they patched me through to their artist manager, who ended up coming to that festival to meet me
Mm-hmm.
because it was like a 3-hour drive from Nashville. We were in Kentucky at the time. We chatted on my break, maybe 20, 30 minutes, got cut off because my break was over. I followed up via email that night. So it had to
Boom.
be midnight at the time.
Boom.
I flew from that festival to a festival in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
set up a call that morning with him, and essentially was offered the gig that I'm now still doing.
That you're now still doing.
Yep.
Okay. So, and this is your second artist, but so I may have misspoken, your third tour. So I guess it would be a third tour run, but still with the same artist.
Second tour with this artist. But then the Stars on Ice tour. So yeah, 3 tours still.
Okay, okay. I got you. So this first artist, now I know it has not been a linear relationship initially because hey, here's the thing is we come with these expectations. Other people have expectations. And when we lead with expectation, things communication can break down, things can and happen. And also when and Rachel's a lot like me, this is a good lesson, is we love to please. We love to serve. We love to do what we can to make sure that people are happy, people have what they need. And oftentimes what happens to people like us is we say yes a lot to responsibilities and added things outside of our realm, right? Is that something that happened to you? I remember I got a call from you when I was on a tour. I'm pacing the front lounge of a tour bus. You didn't know that. Coaching Rachel to some degree, kind of coaching you off a little bit of a ledge. What happened?
That tour gave me a run for my money in so many ways.
Yeah.
I want to say we went through 9 bus drivers in 2 weeks, at least 5, 6 buses. From the very, very beginning, the first night, we were supposed to have 2 buses. 2 buses turned into 1 bus and 2 SUVs.
Because
We couldn't find another bus. I think the bus had broken down or something.
right.
So I want to say from the very, very beginning, I don't even think I slept in a bunk. I think I slept in the front lounge or the back lounge for like the first 2 weeks of that tour. Just a little bit more than you bargained for. You agree to tours based off of a schedule and what you're told.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that changed before I left Nashville. But you wanna be able to adapt with change. You want to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I was also new to the tour, so I was like, a bunk's not like gonna make or break me. I don't have to perform. I don't have to be up at 6 necessarily, whereas some of these guys do. I'll take the front lounge. I'll take the back lounge. I'll make it work.
Hmm.
Then it was SUVs. Then it was randomly being the one to fly. So there's constantly a time crunch in its own way.
Hmm.
Some people drop the ball on their own parts that I then had to pick up because they were kind of young and confused, which you can't be mad at someone for that.
You mean in tour management and production management, or was it kind of like one role person?
No, it was another role. It was another person's role.
Okay.
But it had some overlap with mine.
Mhm.
So I kind of ended up like adapting that into my day,
Right.
which
Sure, it was
wasn't
effective.
exactly, wasn't ideal,
Mhm.
but made it work. And then we had, COVID was still very much so a thing. And our headliner was in this moment, they caught COVID. So unfortunately, we had some canceled shows.
Mhm.
And as a band lower on the tier in that sense, we needed to make those shows up. And unfortunately, it was rough
Mhm.
because we had no off days for practically the first 4 or 5 weeks as a
Wow.
result of that.
Mhm.
So, we're switching buses, we're all getting sick. You're doing show after show. Some shows, some shows we would load in, completely get set up, and then be told, oh, yeah, there's no show today. And I was like,
Yeah.
great, great. Like, I'm just gonna take it all down, throw it all back on the truck. It's been a 10-hour day for no reason. You would find out maybe 2 hours before doors.
Right. Right.
So it wasn't an off day. It was very much so a work day.
Now, mind you, you're in a weird, situation with bands going back out on tours. COVID's a worry. Hard to find logistics. I mean, this wasn't just your tour. There was other tours dealing with no buses, no truck, like all this crazy stuff. But on yours specifically, this also starts to get tension between the crew, right?
Oh, for sure. People, all of a sudden, like people are fighting, people are leaving. We had people on this with this group for 13 years who said, you know what, like, I'm
Yeah.
out.
Screw it. Yeah.
And, like one of them left to go with another camp they worked with. And now we're short one person here.
Mhm.
We're short left and right. Somebody was always leaving.
Yeah.
And eventually, it got to me as well. And I was like, I kind of can't keep living like this.
Yeah.
This is a lot. I love the artist. I love the group of people I'm with, but I don't necessarily love the situation I'm in.
Yeah.
I had gotten super sick. I want to say due to all the bus changes, I might have fallen off that bus at that point 2, 3 times.
Mhm.
Couldn't really walk. There was never time to go to a doctor because we never had an off day.
Mhm.
We're having hotel issues left and right, bus issues left and right, driver issues left and right. And by the time I called you, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. But I
Yes.
also want to go home in a professional capacity versus like
Yeah.
disappearing in the middle of the night.
And so Rachel calls me, and I just want to kind of pick up because Rachel calls me and she's on a ledge. She said, "Okay, thank you for taking this call. Listen, I'm on a ledge. I'm about to just walk away." But this is uncharacteristic of Rachel because she doesn't walk away. And I knew that if Rachel's coming to me with this, it's got to be serious. And so, first thing I told her from my perspective was, well, don't quit because quitting and don't walk away because walking away and quitting does something very harmful for you and your courage and all this stuff that you've built up, your confidence, your career. I said, it's always a communication breakdown. Always in these situations, no matter what, even when you've taken on all of this and everything, it's because things are not vocalized to the right people. Usually they're vocalized to the wrong people, and all it is this loop of confusion and conflict. And I said, what did I tell you? I said, go to the person that brought you on, go to the person, the hiring manager, go to that person and express your honest feelings about what's going on without an ultimatum, without telling him, hey, I'm leaving. Like, first communicate first. So what'd you do?
I called the artist manager who had hired me, who I had met at the festival.
Yeah.
And I said, I had needed like I want to say like we were also going over reorder at the time. So these are things that like we need to get. These are things we need. I understand our budget isn't great, but like this is stuff that would make like day to day easier. Let's get this. And I had noticed that our headliner started doing 2 VIPs instead of 1. And I said, hey, clearly like we're in a bind financially. Why don't we do this?
Mm-hmm.
Because if she can, why can't we? We could do one before show. We can do one after show. And I said, if I'm being honest with you, what we're doing and adding all these shows is just burning out the crew even more. So I said, even the band is sick. And I said, I don't know if you're aware, but like everyone's virtually had it, including me.
And you started to lay it out for him, right?
Yeah. And he was just like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And in explaining it to him, he goes, I didn't realize any of this was transpiring.
Right. And that's what I mean by that communication, about letting people in.
Oh, for sure. So, we had that conversation and we definitely like took it into consideration, but was also still like, my goal is to make the artist money. We can't lose money on this run. First tour after COVID, like, got to hit the ground running, which like I totally respected. And I said, look, you're informed now, you know what's going on. However, that doesn't change where I'm at. I don't think this is for me anymore. And I said, it's not anyone here. I said, everyone here is great, but the situation itself isn't. And we were very upset. No, we weren't mad. We are just like, we felt like you were a person. Like it was the first time like we're seeing like these kind of numbers. The guys have a new understanding of like how merch works. Like, no, like you can't leave. And I was like, look, like I appreciate that you want me to be here, but I have to put my health first at this point. And like, I'm so sick that like, I don't even think like 2 off days could like have me bounce back properly.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, okay, like, I'm really sad to hear this. And I said, it could be very much so be right band, wrong time. So we hung up, he shared this information with the band. Band was not okay with that decision. They said, okay, well, like, we're prepared to offer more money. And I'm like, can you go on vacation? Like, can you leave for a week and like go to urgent care, sleep, and like come back? And I was like, I don't know. Cause like the tour itself, like the problems still haven't changed. Like this is all very much still happening around me. The artist manager even said, like, I don't think, she's going to go for that. Called me back. I originally said no. I said, look, like, I don't think that's the solution because like we're still going about this the same way.
Right.
And I said, it's not a money issue. It's not a people issue. It's just a logistical issue. So a couple days passed. I'm still on the tour because I had said, like, I'm not leaving you overnight. I would leave. I think I said like 9 days later when we're kind of like even in my area.
1 second. Let me ask you a question. When you were able to express all of that and finally release all that tension, how did you feel? Did you feel better about everything, even though you were still out there? Did you just feel like, okay, it's out there? Like, how did you feel about it being out there?
I can't say I felt better. I definitely still felt bad. I felt bad.
Bad in what you say?
I didn't want to do that to them because I know I'm like putting someone in a position just the same. It wasn't an issue with them directly. It was just an issue with what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in a sense, like, yes, I felt better because it was communicated, but I also still felt bad because I communicated I was also leaving.
So to that point, guys, that's watching this, this is the difference of job or gig and career here. Notice Rachel is talking about caring about the craft. She's connected to what she's doing from a career standpoint. Anyone that has a merch gig would have spent about a week out there and be like, nah, I'm good. I'll go find another one. This is the difference of a job and a career. I wanted to stop and just bring that up because Rachel is very much so career oriented. And this is an example of that. Sorry, continue.
No worries. So that transpired. I said I would stay for like another, like, I don't know, it had to be like 8 days or something like that, something crazy. which is still a long time given the fact that I'm super sick and can't walk.
Mm.
Well, in those 8 days, I am pretty much getting pounded by my crew. It's like, you can't go, you can't go, you can't go. I'm just like, all you can say is I'm sorry. Like, this is what's happened.
But didn't
We've
you get pneumonia too?
say what? Yeah, I had pmonia.
Like right when you got home, you got pneumonia, right? Or
Well,
it just
that was when I finally went to urgent care to
Hmm.
find out what was going on.
Jesus,
And I found out I had pneumonia this entire time.
Jesus.
Which made sense why like I couldn't breathe because my lung weren't really functioning to
Yeah.
their full potential. So the crew's pounding me like, we're sad you're leaving, you can't go, this, that, the other. Kind of okay, it still sucks, but it comes with the gig in that sense.
Hmm.
Like you're always with these people, they're going to tell you how they feel, because if they don't tell you how they feel, they'll be annoyed when you leave and they didn't say it.
Hmm.
And then eventually the band starts doing it. And I had a couple sit downs with them and I was like, you guys, just like, it's not you. Like, it's really not you. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, it's not the people. And I know you feel like I'm doing this to you and I don't want it to come off that way. So they're like, they pretty much offered like anything out there to make a compromise. And I said, you know what? Like, I can acknowledge that. You want this to work as much as I want this to work, but we can also both realize that like I'm dying.
Right. Change is
Physically dying.
happening.
They even threw out like me hiring an assistant like day to day if I needed another person, just to kind of counteract everything that was going on. And I said, well, if they're willing to make this work in that way, I shouldn't just walk away then. So I facilitated with one of the other sellers for support who was on my bus, because we were on 2 buses. I facilitated with their merch guy. I said, hey, can you cover 2 shows for me? Just 2. One's a headliner for us, so like easy-ish day. Because it's only, I want to say it was only us as the acts. So it's really easy in that sense. I said, can you do these 2 shows? You'll do one full tour show for me, and I will facilitate another person to come out for the other 5 shows that I'll miss. He agreed. He said, hey, like, you help me all the time. We share our space. We live together. I want you to come back. So if me doing 2 shows is what you need, I'm in. So I was like, great. Called a buddy of mine that had just gotten off tour. I knew was here in Nashville, in case the artist manager wanted to meet that person face to face. We could just get coffee type deal in town. I call my friend. He says, hey, Rach, I actually love that band. I love those guys. I know them. Sure, I'll do it for you. Like, if it's going to help you, it'll help me. I'm in.
Nice.
I then call our artist manager back. I say, hey, look, everybody has drilled into me about leaving. As I said, could be right band, wrong time. I said, I still kind of believe that, but I want to make this work. You guys want to make this work. I think I've prepared a compromise. This is what I've got. Threw that out there. I said, this person will sell the first 2 days. This person will come out for a week. I'll meet you in Reno right before we do a bunch of festivals, because that just takes a little bit more of a finesse in the sense of knowing what you're doing. And that person didn't have festival knowledge as far as advancing products, dropping it off, W-9s, all that tax information. So I was like, I'll be back right in time for this show, for the album release, for these festivals. What do you think? And at the end of the day, like, they were super happy about it. Said, well, we want to do just that. Cool. Go home. Bye. Like, we'll pack for you. Leave for 10 days. Go see a doctor. Come back at your best. And like, let's finish this run, which is what happens.
And then when you came back to finish the run, were things logistically different? Even though you were back, that was a real worry. Were things drastically different, or were they the exact same, but you were just re-energized and empowered?
They were definitely the same.
Yeah.
I think we canceled a couple shows due to weather, not due to COVID.
Yeah.
We made up some of them on our off days. Some routing had changed a bit. We hit a bear. Like instantly when I got back, we hit a bear. So then we were down a truck. So it was one of those like, oh wow, like I thought I came back into this like you kind of like clean slate. Day one, we hit a bear.
By the way, she said hit a bear. Okay, guys, like this is actually a real thing in touring that people don't realize. I've hit probably 4 or 5 deer in our tour buses over the years, and it's like, holy crap, like it's crazy. You don't think about these things. They hit a bear.
We hit a bear on a festival day to make that just 10 times worse. I want to say we were at Aftershock. We probably pulled in like 10, 11, had a little bit of trouble getting in. They didn't think we were the artists that we were. That was just like a security miscommunication error type thing. We get into the festival. We're like, okay, our truck's supposed to arrive at like 11:30. You get a call from the truck driver. Funny story. I hit a grizzly bear or a black bear or whatever it is. My truck is wrecked. He goes, someone else is going to come. They're going to take the trailer to you. Well, they're supposed to be here. He goes, it'll be like 1. We're like, okay, like 1's a little late. We go on stage at 3, but like, it's fine. Like we can make it work. Mind you, I was supposed to have merch issued at like 9 a.m. So I'm like, okay, well, like I'll just communicate that with like the merch company at the festival. We'll make this work on our end. Well, 1 now becomes 2. We still have to be on stage at 3. So then it was very much so like, okay, as much as I want to sell product right now, the show has to go on somehow. Obviously, the labor crew, like for the festival, wasn't thrilled. They had 45 minutes to pretty much throw an entire set together. And while someone's on the stage performing, mind you, we're building in the background. So then I was like, well, day one, I'm not doing merch anymore. Now I'm a stagehand. Now I'm just like, how can I help us make this work?
Yes, Rachel.
Instantly did that. I think we had like 10 minutes to spare. I was supposed to advance. I think I advanced like shirts and hoodies to the festival. Well, didn't take into account that all that's happening shifted our stuff around. And there's a pack in front of my pack. I can't access all of my merch. I now call the festival, who I've actually had worked with in the festival scene. Hey, crazy question. I know I can only give you like 180 pieces per product. How about I give you double the product, but 1? Can we like cancel the hoodies out? We hit a bear. This is all I can access. If it's a no, I get it. But then I can only give you 1 product and an accessory. And he goes, actually, I would love to not count hoodies because it's 100 degrees right now. I'll take double your shirts. I'll take your hats. We'll figure it out. He goes, don't even worry about picking them up. Normally we don't ship it back. We'll ship it back for you. You're having a day. I was able to issue full cases that way. Not necessarily the numbers I would have given, but a little bit altered. Dropped those off. Came back. Now we're performing. And now we have a whole different set of issues because our lead singer performs barefoot. The stage is literally on fire. We're playing midday. And now we're taking like wet towels, throwing them on the stage. I'm trying to figure out how I can make this work once we're done. Because just because you're done performing doesn't mean that like, your feet don't still burn. I've now found a bucket of ice water for him to like jump into as soon as it's over. Connected with Artist Transpo to get golf carts to drive them from the stage back to the bus. It was a really crazy first day back.
Man, guys, do you hear this? This is a career touring crew person right here. Rachel, merch manager, yes, but crew member of the artists that she's with. And oftentimes, when you get these big, huge tours where it's multiple trucks and buses and stuff, yes, you will fall into your lane because you are a cog in that bigger machine and you got to do it really, really well. Not to say that you won't step in and help, but look, there's levels to this game. And Rachel's in a point in her career where she takes complete ownership of being a team member, as we should anyways, but like that's what this looks like for her. And so, by the way, what's the name of this group you're with?
I'm with nothing more.
Nothing more. Okay, cool. Well, you know me and my limited music knowledge of the bands, but anyhow, that's amazing. And so, thanks for sharing that war story with us. There's a lot of war stories, by the way. You're going to have plenty of your own self, by the way, crew. But Rachel, you finished this tour run. Now it sounds to me that you're still with this band because y'all are heading out soon on another tour run.
Yep.
In between there and then, like, have you continue to do what we teach about building the relationships and stuff? I know that this is an obvious question. Yes, of course, is probably the answer. But what would happen if some next level opportunity came to you between now and leaving out?
I think that would depend on what it is. When that run ended, it was wild, the whole thing. So overall, it was just wild. I already knew that the Olympic tour wanted me back. And I said, hey, I just want to kind of connect with you because you're already saying you want to be like your permanent artist rep right now. I'm very much so willing to give this another go to see, like, was that just a fluke? Like, because the reality is, like, now you're saying you're doing a headliner tour.
Right.
And I very much so think that if you can't make it on a headliner tour without the same issues, then the issue wasn't the tour. The issue is like the people working it.
That's right. Correct. Yeah.
So I said, well, it's only fair that I give you another chance. You know, we did our first tour after COVID. It was what it was. New year, that one's out of the way. It's your tour. You're at the top of the bill. How does it play out?
Yeah.
So I'd reached out to artist management. I said, hey, I have some offers right now. I just wanted to chat with you because I do want to give you guys priority right now.
Boom.
But I did think that they deserved another opportunity regardless. And ironically, like, we were like, yo, like, we want, we want you, definitely want you back. Kind of give me like 2 days. I'm finishing out the schedule. It's not going to be perfect, but it's like a rough idea. And I said, hey, like, I don't need to have like a hard start and end. I just need to kind of get an idea of like what months we're talking.
Yeah, the block. Yeah.
And that's when I had already learned these two tours were going to conflict. I said, hey, well, like, I want to prioritize you guys. I'm going to go out with you. I knew that I had already talked to the Olympic tour about, I had agreed to come back. So I sent them an email, kind of like, hey, this is regarding the 2023 tour. I know you guys want me back. I know that I said I was willing to come back. But as you can imagine, I've toured since that tour. One of them, which was, with this artist, our tours conflict. I'd still like to make this work. I'd like to continue my relationship with you guys. This is what I'm proposing. I totally understand it's not an overnight decision. Nice. If it works for you, it works for me. Let's make it happen. If not, like, I appreciate the opportunity and like the ability to be with like the Stars and Ice family. They wrote me back. We're bummed. Let me talk it over, like, kind of like with other people on the tour. Let's see what we can do. And that's why I'm at where I'm at right now. Nothing More had also disclosed they're doing a European run. I'm bouncing with like being on it, being off it right now. We don't know where I'm at. And I was kind of like, hey, like, no worries. Like, I'm good either way.
Yeah.
It would suck to not go with them because they haven't been in Europe in five years. You're kind of almost rebranding yourself at that point. So I'd like to be a part of that like rebranding concept, but I also understand like going to Europe is super expensive. Like, it might not be ideal. So right now, it's a matter of what that opportunity would be. Does it feel right? What is the opportunity? How long is it? Do I want to give up this for that? Can I grow from going from this to that? Because that was also a big part of my decision. Stars on Ice allowed me to do very different things. I toured with Olympic athletes. I handled VIP things. I handled, interviews that you watch on TV. Like, I facilitated those in the background. And gathered everyone. I chaperoned, events that we went to. All that stuff was really cool. But in the grand scheme of things, I wasn't really getting to grow in my direct area because I wasn't selling. Whereas with Nothing More, I'm able to contribute to designs, rollouts, VIP programs, ways for the artist to make more money. I get to advance, I get to hire sellers, I get to settle the shows. I get to do so much more related to my direct job, which plays into my bigger picture at the end of the day.
Yeah. And, all I want to just, unpack a minute that it's because you allowed, like, there was nothing definitive. It wasn't just all about you, although your career is about you. In building the career, it's always about serving the opportunities that you have. And I'm big on this, on like when you have these career crossroads and you have these different interests and proposed obligations and commitments, to go and communicate through them. And you did that so wonderfully, so perfectly, exactly how I would have coached you through it, is to communicate that, hey, here is me. I'm opening myself up to helping you figure this out. Just to let you know, I haven't made any decision because I want to bring you on board on my decision process. That's a big deal. A lot of people just go in with all about them and their ultimatums and say, hey, sorry, I got this other thing and I appreciate it, but I'm going to have to move on. So many people do this, and they start cutting relationships and damaging relationships unknowingly, without realizing that there's always an option. There's always a consideration, and you want to just do everything that you can to serve the opportunity. And like I said, those conversations that you had with the Olympic commit or the Olympic people, as well as the artist management and all of that stuff, it's like, that's the way to do it. Exactly what you did is like, say, hey, here's some solutions. I'm down, and being very honest and transparent. You don't have to worry about how someone receives it or whatever, as long as you understand that you're coming at it from a place of a team, serving the opportunity, as opposed to just getting and taking from the opportunity. Because this is not just a gig, it's a career that we're building. So cool, Rachel, to have seen all of this, to get to play a very small part in this with you. I'm so proud of you. And I know that whatever you have next coming up is going to be tremendous, because as you start to get bigger and you start to be on, like with Bieber, for instance, and Ariana Grande, some of these big tours that I've been on, we've had 4 and 5 touring merch people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those touring merch people don't vend. A lot of them are just feeding booths and things like that. And it's just a big local selling team. And so, there is, like, as you rise up, you get to do a lot less of some of the stuff that you get to do with the smaller band. However, there's still a connection to the craft of being really completely taking ownership of that role, even on those big merch teams, which I know one day that you are definitely going to be running one of those big ships, and your craft is going to be so dialed in that you're going to take even that responsibility to a new level with merch, because that's what a career merch person does. That's not so just focused on doing the gig, because there's always another gig.
Oh, for sure. I've also been super blessed to even do that a little bit now at the same time, because when I wasn't touring, I was still networking. I met people in town, one of which controlled the stadium gigs in town. Well, now I find myself staffing 20 to 25 vendors for those events. I bring out a crew of my own, run multiple stands at a time. And that is the kind of feeding in that sense. Like, I'm not vending, I'm hiring the vendors, I'm issuing product, settling all these booths at the end of the night, paying out all these people, but I don't sell anymore.
But that's the craft, though. But that's the craft, that's the actual art of merchandising, is being able to take ownership at every level and doing it the best of your ability without letting ego get in the way, thinking, oh man, I'm not getting to do the one thing. It's like, yeah, but I get to do all these other aspects of the merch machine, and I can do them like really badass, So, because you're badass, Rachel, come on.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate your mom too, by the way. I know I keep seeing her pass because your mom is such a huge supporter of you. And I mean, as you should be, but I got to tell you, a lot of these parents are not as supportive as that. And that really, I started to tear up, to be honest, when you were talking about earlier about your mom, because I love that so much. It's so amazing. You're amazing, Rachel. And what's going to be for you coming towards the future is going to be nothing but growth, nothing but tremendous opportunities. There's going to be plenty of times that there are going to be some big leaps that you're going to have to make, some uncomfortable moments and some risk, and there's going to be some hard conversations and some really tough, trying times. It's not your only hard tour that you've gone through, but man, you're going to be ready. You're prepared. You're stronger through it all. You're fortified through all of this stuff because again, this is not just a gig for you. It's not just about getting a merch gig or getting on a tour. It's about building a touring merch management career. And it's
Exactly.
pretty cool. What would be something that you would share with crew coach members now, whether they're going to be merch people or they're going to be tour managers or video directors or backline or lighting or whatever it is that they're working on here in crew coach, which is geared towards touring now. Back when you started, it was general industry with Backstage Crew Career Course, but with crew coach, it's touring. What would you tell someone, whether they're just getting started or they're just wanting to make a leap to their next level? What would you advise them that you've learned?
Most importantly, just don't get discouraged. I
Hmm.
mean, it's easy to feel bad for yourself when you get no's or you don't get emails back, but you kind of have to keep pushing forwards in order to get the yeses and get the emails back. Just because you don't get one doesn't mean you shouldn't send a follow-up a week later or a month later. I think also at the same time, like just networking in general, don't be scared to, like, once you've added someone online, if they live locally, don't be scared to invite them for coffee and buy them a cup of coffee. Being the person to buy them a cup of coffee actually does a lot. People are very surprised by that. I don't know why. It's a $4 cup of coffee, but it's like a big deal. But you kind of just like set the intention in that, like it shows that you value that they took the time to come meet you and to sit down with you, and whether it be, 20 minutes or 2 hours, just go into that with an open mind. Don't expect something and let it be like what it should be. And then remember to like follow up with those people. I just did a Venn the other day. The girls lived in Florida. She mentioned she was working the Super Bowl. Said, hey, I'm flying to Phoenix Friday. Said, oh, cool. Like have a great time, have a great Venn, like stay safe. Well, I just remembered, hey, we said Friday, we're leaving for Phoenix. Just a quick text, have a safe flight, have a great Venn. It goes a long way.
Oh, that's some valuable stuff. I'm so happy that we did this. I normally was trying to keep this under an hour, but I just couldn't stop because you're just so amazing. I'm so proud of you, Rachel. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate you. You're the best.
Yeah, no, you're the best. Well, listen, crew, I hope you guys really appreciated this career chat that we had with the one and only Rachel Ingber. It wasn't that long ago that she was back in West Palm Beach trying to figure this out. And I hope this has really inspired you that no matter if it's a pandemic in the way or a tough gig or pneumonia or hitting a bear, nothing has to stop you if you just stand in your future self every single day, living each moment with intention, meeting each moment with intention. That's what I've learned from Rachel, is that every moment matters. As long as you understand yourself, you can lead with the right focus of your future. And man, Rachel is a prime example of that future. And we can all see clearly, she's actually over here, we can clearly see that Rachel is headed for some huge things with the foundation that she's built up. So crew, if you gained anything from this, if you had one takeaway from this, reply in the reply thread below this video. I would love to hear what you have to think about this career chat with Rachel Ingber. And until next time, guys, go get them.